Welcome, my dear students. I hope you all fine and safe. I am Mr. S. Bhubali, Assistant Professor, Department of English, KK Coimbatore, and I am gonna present an introduction to SOC literature. Let's move on to our session. So, what do you mean by SOC literature? What is an expansion of SOC? SOC means South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation. It includes Maldives, Nepal, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Bhutan, and India. These are all the countries included in SOC and they are considered as SOC countries. So, before getting to our session, we have to look into the things which we are gonna deal. First, we're gonna see the introduction to the SOC literature and role and its significance, and then the cultural, societal, and narrative style in SOC literature, and finally, an overview of literature from SOC countries. First, introduction to SOC literature. SOC is an acronym word for South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation. It is a political organization of 8 countries, namely Pakistan, Bangladesh, India, Sri Lanka, Nepal, Bhutan, Maldives, and Afghanistan. These countries have a common cultural and historical ties besides any other geographical proximity. Because without some geographical proximity, apart from that, we also have some links in cultural and historical ways. And we also have the cultural and literary exchange among member countries is an agenda of SOC. So the SOC's agenda is the literary and cultural exchange among the member countries, called namely the 8 countries. And especially in SOC literature, we also have SOC Literary Award. Just like Nobel Prize, SOC Literary Award is an annual award conferred by the foundation of SOC and Forceful. Forceful means a foundation of SOC writers and literature since 2001. The purpose of SOC Literary Award is to honor the writers from SOC countries for their contribution to literature. The first SOC Literary Award winner is Shamsur Rahman, as the first writer to receive Literary Award in 2001. And Suman Pokhrel was the only writer to get the SOC Literary Award twice in a year, 2013 and 2015, for his literary contribution in SOC literature. He is a Nepali poet, a lyricist, and a translator. And next, we have the role and significance of SOC literature. SOC literature is a strong case to be recognized as a distinguished body in literature, and it's tremendous boost to the creative talents in SOC countries. So basic role of the SOC literature is to boost the creative talents in SOC literary countries and to expose the cultural and historical proximities and their values in literature. And the major themes and concepts they have dealt with is South Asian diaspora. So SOC literary writers concentrate mainly on South Asian diaspora and the themes like women's empowerment, religious proximities, and cultural values. And then ethnic lives of people in subaltern condition of women and minorities and Dalits. These are all the common themes and concepts in SOC literature. And also some socio-economical problems and cultural and historical perspectives and ex-colonies of Britain, because SOC country are the namely 8 countries. These are all the ex-colonies of Britain. So they have the common colonial after effects in literature also. So they have some cultural, traditional, philosophical, and religion values, and they have some proximities in that. And next, let's go on to the religion and language. In religion wise, we can see Hinduism, Islam, Buddhism, Christianity, and Sikhism, all the basic religions followed by among these 8 countries. The basics language, they are linguistically Urdu is a common language in Pakistan and India. So they also have a language proximities. They have shared language from different countries. They have different connectivities in different languages from different countries. Just like Urdu is a common language in Pakistan and India, and Bengali is the common language for India and Bangladesh. Tamil is also a language used in India and Sri Lanka. So, Indo-European language group and English is, so for these countries, English is also a common language used in all the 8 countries. So these are all the connectivities in religion and language used in soft literature. Next, we have in social and cultural style. So India and Pakistan and especially Bangladesh have gone through the same trauma of colonialism and partition. So the partition between India and Pakistan, and the partition from Bangladesh from Pakistan, and they also have political, emotional, and cultural and spiritual bond. They still exist. India's proximity with Nepal, Bhutan, and Sri Lanka is well known. So we have these are called as neighboring countries. And in Sri Lanka, Tamil and Sinhalese, they have the Indian origin. And the early settlers of Maldives are from Buddhism. So these are all the things. The major Buddhist peoples have settled in Maldives. They are from India. So Islam is also adopted only in 1053 AD. So myths and legends, they are spread out. So these are all the cultural and societal values used among these 8 countries. And next, we have the writers. At first, we have the Pakistani writers in Sark literature. Let's let us know what are the basic famous writers and poets in Pakistan and their contribution in Sark literature. So Pakistani writers are taking greatest interest in exploring the problems of Pakistan to catch the interest afterward. For first, we have Ahmad Ali, a famous novelist, and his world famous novel Twilight in Delhi and Ocean at Night. These are all the famous novels by Ahmad Ali. And we have Zulfikar Ghosh, his famous novel Murder of Aziz Khan in 1967. So these are all the famous novelists and their works. And next we have Babji Sidhwa. His famous novel Ice Candyman and Crow Eaters, they describe about the partition of India and Pakistan. This is a partition novel, and it also describes the Parsi's life in Pakistan. And next we have Muhsin Ahmed. He wrote 2 novels. They are also famous novels. They are called Moth Smoke and Reluctant Fundamentalists. And next we have Nadim Aslam. Nadim Aslam is also a famous writer. His Maps for Lost Lovers. These are the great praise and hails from the critics. They appreciated this novel for its contribution and its cultural values. And next we also have women writers. Women writers like Kamila Shamsi, Muniza Alvi, Ferel Alvi Kaha, and Tehmina Durrani. And Tehmina Durrani's first novel, My Feudal Lord, is an autobiography. In this novel, it's a controversial novel. It also describes her marriage with Ghulam Mustafa Gar. Mustafa Gar was a former governor and chief minister of Punjab. This controversial novel created many criticism, and it also gave a fame to Tehmina Durrani. So these are all the famous women writers in Pakistan. And Pakistani poetry in Pakistan, they also have the partition themes and alienation and loss of identity. These themes are included in Pakistani poetry, and it also explains the exploitation of women under the patriarchal system. And these are all the major concepts used in Pakistani poetry. And Pakistani poets, we have Ahmad Ali, the famous novelist, he also the poet, and Zulfikar Ghosh. His Laws of India and Jets of Orange was famous poems. And the contemporary writers, we have the 20th century contemporary writers Nazir Kazmi and Daud Kamal and Munir Niazi. These are all the contemporary writers to Zulfikar Ghosh, and also their contribution to Sark literature is immense. And next we move on to the Pakistani writers. So we have seen the Bangladesh, sorry, Pakistan writers, and let's move on to the Bangladesh writers. And Bangladesh writers, they have the religious political proximity with Pakistan, and they also have the religious proximity. And their works, so Qazi Nazrul is the famous poet, and he is considered as the national poet of Pakistan. He was well versed in Quran and Vedanta. His poems are beautiful and very religious related. And other notable writers in Bangladesh are Humayun Muhammad, Shamsul Rahman, and Daud Haider, and Bilal Chowdhury. These are all the four famous writers and novelists. And Afghanistan writers, we have. So after that, we move on to the Afghanistan writers. So in Afghanistan, we have many poets and writers, especially the national poet of Afghanistan is Kushat Khan Khatak. He is the national poet of Afghanistan, and Jalduddin is a famous poet, and Bakmi Rumi, and they deal with the Dari language. Dari language is the language they used in their writings. And other notable writers in Afghanistan was Ustad Khalilullah Kali and Akbar Nadim and Abdul Ali Musdagni. They are all the other famous writers and poets in Afghanistan. And it's more to the novelists from Afghanistan in Sak literature. So these are all the writers from different countries, and we are dealing with these country writers and their notable works and their contribution to Sak literature. So in Afghanistan novelists, we have Khalil Hosseini. He was famous for his novels, and his Kite Runner was a world famous novel written in 2003, and it is about the Afghanistan people's life in 1970s. And The Thousand Splendid Sun was a world famous novel. A Thousand Splendid Sun. It's translated into many languages. It was published in 2007. A Thousand Splendid Sun is about life of a woman in Afghanistan, and there are many major characters in that novel that explores the condition of Afghanistan women and the harassment happened to the Afghanistan people, especially women, how they were dominated by the male chauvinists. These are all the major concepts discussed in A Thousand Splendid Suns novel. And next, we move on to the Nepali writers. So Nepali writers, and their writings are basically on fictions and poetry. They describes about their cultural values, especially they describes the breeze of Himalayas, mountain, and the other beautiful places and their cultural values. So Lakshmi Prasad Devakoda, the famous writer, and he is considered as the greatest poet. He is called as Magakavi. Magakavi means the great poet, and he was a great poet of Nepal. And he just he wrote Sakuntal and Sulochana, a world famous epic poetry, and Mohan Koirala, another poet, and Manjusri Thapa, a famous novelist. His first novel is A Tutor of History. These are all the famous poems and novels produced by the Nepali writers. So they have contributed something to the Sak literature, especially Lakshmi Prasad Devakoda. And his Sakuntala and Sulochana has dealt with an epic concepts and myths from Hinduism. And next we have Bhutan writers. So Bhutan writers, it consists of a Himalayan kingdom and is known for their folk songs and stories. Their ethnic lives and subaltern lives and the cultural values, these proximities are built in their poems. The famous writers from Bhutan is Kunzang Chodan, and his first novel, Circle of Karma, was a famous novel and is considered as a feminist novel also. And Karma Ura. And next we have Maltese writers. So Maltese writers, they are famous poets. They only produce poems. The famous poets are Abdullah Fahmi Didi and Abdullah Sadiq and Muhammad Jamil. They are all the famous poets in Sak literature. So these are all the famous countries, and the writers from these countries people produced some valuable cultural and religious related works, and their contribution to Sark literature is immense. They shows the cultural values and the religious proximities among these 8 countries. The common thing they have is they are the partition countries, they were the ex-colonies of Britain, they are the South Asian countries. So these are all the proximities and the connectivity in common in the South countries. These 8 countries have these considers. At the same time, women empowerment and cultural and religious values and subaltern peoples and casteism and religion is the major themes and concepts deal in the works of these 8 countries. So when we look into the Sark literature, we can see the common thing in religious, mythological, and cultural concepts among these 8 countries. So India has the proximity with Pakistan. They both share. They share the not only the historical, geographical, but also cultural and religious values, and the connectivity between Bangladesh and Pakistan. So these Sri Lanka and India, and Nepal, Bhutan, Maldives, these are all the ex-colonies of Britain, and they have dealt with the common cultural and religious things after the British colonizations. So these are all the major points, and let's move on to the Sri Lankan writers. In Sri Lanka, they have the religious, cultural, and historical proximity with India. We know they our the neighboring country, and the major writers are in Sri Lanka. They follow Buddhism. So Buddhism is come from India. So these are all the things we have in common. So major writers in Sri Lanka is Kaw Mulla and Jean Arasanayagam, Kamala Vijayaratne, and Premini Amarasinghe, and Rajiva Vijay Singhe. And his novel Days of Despair is another identified novel in Sri Lanka, and it also describes the Indian army that took on Tamil Tigers, the political issues of Tamil Tigers, political issues between Tamil Tigers and Indian army. It also exposed in the novel Days of Despair. So these are all the political things discussed and political connectivity that common in Sri Lanka and India. So these are all the things we have in common in Sark literature. So these are all the writers and their language. So the purpose of Sark literature is to expose the cultural, religious, and historical and geographical values and connectivity and the bond among these 8 countries. It also, the importance of Sark literature is to produce numerous works based on the cultural and religious proximities from these 8 countries. So these are all the major purposes in Sark literature. They have the common theme in women empowerment, religious problem, casteism, and subaltern people's sufferings. These are all the common themes in Sark literature. And also they have the different narrative styles. They have the common mythological and historical figures to deal with. So they have some common ideologies in these 8 countries. They also gives a different shape to a literature in Sark literature. So these are all the things we have seen in Sark literature. So the role and significance of Sark literature is immense. The Sark Literary Award is a very famous award given for the Sark literary writers. So these are all things we have seen. And Sark literature has many different categories, just like novels, poems, and other genres. And these genres, the major things are that the cultural and religious values of these 8 countries and the people is exposed through the Sark literature rather than other country writers and their novels. This literature helps us to identify the different cultures and values and their proximities with among these countries. So these are all the things we can witness in soft literature. And that's all for today's session. Thank you for your patience and cooperation. Thank you all.